Hi, this is the chassis of my 57 Austin Healey, and I am embarking on what is no doubt a very controversial procedure. My chassis was in decent shape. The rails were in solid shape, but I had some small rust holes, and worse than anything, these rails had gotten water in them at some point, and they had just a little bit, but enough to where the inside is a little rusty and had been eaten from the inside out. They're not bad, and I've seen chassis on the road that are worse than this. But I was concerned. I didn't want to go through this process without trying to make it as stiff as possible. I looked into mechanical ways, putting steel inside the chassis and things like that. And ultimately, after a ton of research, I decided to pour in polyurethane foam into the chassis. This is what I decided to use. It's from a company called Smooth On. It's the Foam It 10 Slow, the slow being the key. This is the only company I know of that makes a slow rise product. It's a 10-pound foam, which means 1 cubic feet, a foot of it, I'm sorry, is 10 pounds. And it expands to 6 times its volume. So you mix it up and pour it in very, very quickly and wait, and within about 10 minutes, the stuff has pretty much expanded and filled. They say your working time is 3.5 minutes. I've been getting less than 2 minutes. It's been a really quick go. I tried the first time to pour it. That was a disaster. It just is not smooth enough or thin enough to pour, at least not into the holes in my chassis, which I've been trying to use. I'm using existing holes. I don't drill any new ones. And so what I came up with is I bought some cake decorating bags. Buy the best bags you can if you ever try this at home, because otherwise a blowout in these bags is a nightmare. It will explode all over you. But if you buy good bags and a cheap tip, it actually works really well, and you just squirt it in the holes. You still have to move really, really fast. I can't even imagine working with the regular speed setting stuff. It just would be a disaster. So what I've been doing is I mix up about 10 to 12 fluid ounces of each product at a time, and so that leaves me with 20 to 24 fluid ounces. And then I put that into my cake bag and I squirt it in as fast as I can. And at the meantime, I'm doing my best to not make a royal mess, which is very difficult. So I've already done this rail, and you can see it squeezes out. What I do to prepare it is every place there's a small hole, I've been putting kind of this industrial level duct tape, and I've been putting duct tape on, like for example, I'm going to pour it in this hole here, and I have duct tape on the underside sealing it up, and that seems to work really, really well. And so the result is that it squeezes out dirt too, and so the foam ends up looking dirty sometimes by the time it gets to the hole. But it's really hard. It's incredibly strong stuff. If you go to do this, what I've been doing is if I have a bolt hole, I'll put the bolts in place. I'll wax them using a paste wax, a lot of wax on the threads, and then they screw right out, and it works really, really well. And so you've molded in additional threads. So anyway, that's the process I've been going through. The chassis is way, way strong now. This rail, it completely fills. What I've been doing, and I'm not sure this is the right way, it's just what I came up with, is I've been working from the back to the front. I tried to do it equally, and that just didn't work very well. And so working from the back front, I used this hole right there, and I squirted it in, and it basically, then I taped the hole closed as soon as I squirted it in, so you actually have some back pressure, and it basically pushes the foam all the way up here. And so this is completely full, and I think it went down to about here. When it's expanding, it gets pretty darn hot. Not like too hot to touch, but certainly warm. You can actually feel the chassis wall, and and tell exactly where it stopped. So now I'm moving on to the next hole, and I'm going to put another 24 ounces in, and it will most likely come up to this area, and then I'll just work my way forward. So I probably got 2 to 3 more pours, but it goes relatively fast. It takes me probably 15-20 minutes to do each one, and then I wait for a half an hour in between just to make sure it's completely full. But it's been going well. I'm not recommending this to everyone. I think in my situation, I think it was a great solution, because really the next best thing would have been a new chassis. And I've got 2 daughters who are looking closely at college in the next couple of years, and a new chassis just wasn't going to happen. If this fails, and it could, theoretically rust could creep its way in next to the foam, between the foam and the chassis. I don't think that's likely, but that's the most common thing you hear. And I wouldn't know if that happened for 20 to 30 years. This car is not going to be driven in wet weather. It's just not. And I think I'm going to end up with a really, really strong chassis out of this deal. And I think I'm going to be really happy with the result. So your mileage may vary, but I decided to do it. And I talked with a lot of people. I read all the reviews on the stuff. I read all the specs. I've done months worth of research on this. I think it's a great solution. So anyways, that's what I did. I guess we'll know in 20 to 30 years if I've rusted out, but I really am not expecting that to happen. And frankly, I think this has been a really good thing for me. So there you go.